This is groundbreaking stuff today. And don't take that lightly. I've been to so many homeless conferences I can't even begin to tell you. And guess what is hardly ever on the agenda? Brain injury. And as we're going to find out, it's highly likely that there's a pretty significant correlation between untreated traumatic brain injury and falling into homelessness. My work right now is with the Department of Corrections in California, and I work as a psychologist working with folks who have some kind of serious mental illness and they found their way in prison. And unfortunately, there's a good number of those men, it's a men's prison, a good number of them who came into the prison homeless and will probably leave the prison homeless. Before that, for about 5 years, I worked running the Homeless Encampment Outreach Project in Contra Costa County. Contra Costa County has a population of about 1 million people, and it's about as big as, what's our smallest state? Thank you, Rhode Island. So we actually worked with folks not so much in the shelters, but under the bridges. Chronically homeless means you've really been out there for quite a while. Okay? So here's kind of our question. And think about your family and friends. I bet you have a friend or a family member who has a substance problem. I'll bet you have a friend or a family member who has some kind of problem with mental health. Depression, bipolar, maybe schizophrenia. And there's a high likelihood that your friend or family member with the substance issue or with the mental health issue is not homeless. That somehow they managed. We know that there are very high-functioning people with alcohol problems, cocaine, heroin, you name it. They get up, they go to work every day, they raise a family. There are people who have bipolar, schizophrenia, major depression. Maybe they're taking some medication. Maybe every now and then they even end up in a hospital for a couple of weeks. They get up in the morning, they go to work. Here's what my question is. What's the difference between those individuals and the people that ended up on the streets? So, if you have a head injury that's not treated, is that going to put you at higher risk for kind of falling out of society? And then, if for whatever reason you end up on the street, does that increase the likelihood that you're going to be injured in a really serious way? And if you are impaired cognitively, is that going to make it more difficult to get out of a difficult situation that you're in? And here's my really, really big question. What the heck are we doing? So I'm going to do a research review, which is normally very boring and dry, and I'm going to try and make it not too boring and dry. But you know what my point is exactly this. How come we don't have researchers firing up grant money to look at this issue so that we can prevent the kinds of costs that occur after the person has landed on the streets? Not only the cost, but the trauma to that individual for having lost the things that they love and care about in their lives. This artwork, by the way, you're going to see two kinds of pictures in the presentation. One type of graphic is some photographs from homeless encampments or homeless individuals. And then there was one gentleman who I thought was a very gifted artist. So you're going to see some of his, I think, pretty compelling, pretty strong artwork. I jumped on the internet, went to PsycInfo. That's how you kind of do a literature search, right? and I typed in homelessness in brain. You know how you do those? Nothing came up. This is all the journal articles on the psychology side. So then I was like, okay, how about homelessness and cognitive? 9 hits. How about homelessness and neuro something, right? 3 hits. How about homelessness and head injury? Nothing. And this is where my question is. How come? If we typed in homelessness and schizophrenia, you'd get 800, 900 hits. PubMed, these are the medical articles, the medical journals. Homelessness in brain, there were 31, but only 15 of those actually related to head trauma. Homelessness and cognitive, 101 articles, but only 25 were really relevant. Homelessness and neurological, 7 results. Homelessness and head injury, 14, but only 9 of those were really relevant. There are 2 very, very nice literature reviews. So if you have an interest in this topic at all, this is the first one, and it's referenced in the paper that's in your packet. So this was done not too long ago, and they found a whole total of 18 studies on the topic we're talking about today, which is nothing. Last year, there was another research review, and they looked at 22 studies. You know, when you type in these words, you do get hits. So they found 582 articles that could possibly be related, but of those, only 22 really talked about homelessness and head injury. And of those studies, the result was that using this tool called an MMSE, which is the mini mental status exam. And let me just talk about the mini mental status exam for a minute. That will only find the most serious, really serious cognitive impairment. By the time you're scoring clinical on the mini mental status exam, you are really having difficulty. One of the test items is I hold up a piece of paper and it says, close your eyes. And I hold that up to the individual and I say, please do what this says. Another test item is to spell the word world backward. So you have to be extremely impaired not to be able to do these things. Using that instrument, they found 4 to 7% of homeless individuals scoring in a clinical range, which actually is huge. I love this piece of artwork. This homeless gentleman in Antioch, California, veteran, cognitively impaired, grandpa living there, his son and son's wife living in the encampment, and then they had a Child Protective Services came in, and so 3 generations. That was kind of a heartbreaker. There is some literature, and again, this is referenced in my manuscript, a very nice article by a medical doctor, and he concluded that unfortunately, the psychiatric impairments caused by TBI, traumatic brain injury, often go unrecognized. We believe that the homeless population is at increased risk for TBI because of victimization, risk-taking behaviors, including substance abuse, and the presence of antisocial personality disorder. I'd like to add a few things to that. When you're homeless, a major means of transportation is a bicycle. Now, I live in California where there isn't a lot of ice on the streets in the winter. Bikes and ice are not a good combination. Bikes and nighttime are not a good combination. Bikes, nighttime, ice, and no helmet is a really bad combination. We actually had year after year people die because of bicycle-related head injuries.